Well, you're Nick Pascal, and your family owns Pascal's Wines and Liquors in Fayetteville, Pascal's Liquors in Liverpool, and your uncle.
My uncle Chuck at Pascal's Liquor Square on Area Boulevard.
Yeah. So, how long have you all been in the liquor store business?
Before I was around, I think my grandmother and father and uncle. My grandmother was working at a liquor store in Liverpool in the 70s. Shortly after that, they bought that liquor store, and we've moved kind of down the block of Route 57 over the past 40, 50 years.
Okay.
And now in our current location, we've been there almost 20 years. So for 40 plus years, we've been in the liquor industry.
How long have you been involved with it?
I've always been involved to some aspect growing up. I really started in the restaurants. First job, valet parking. That was fun. I didn't even know how to drive stick, and we had some pretty cool cars come in.
What was that like?
It's scary. I remember running inside and grabbing my dad. Hey, Dad, you got to come park this car. There's no way I'm touching that. He gets in and he tells me it wasn't stick. It was automatic. I'm like, oh, well, I probably could have done it then. I mean, I did it all. The main gig growing up was restaurants, catering, and liquor. I probably started managing our Liverpool store about 4 or 5 years ago. I was always involved in some aspects, stocking shelves, cashier. Started to gain interest in it as time progressed, but really like knee deep 4 years ago, I'd say.
Yeah. What's is it true? Is like for when it comes to valet parking, is the joyriding as real and
Oh, there was no joyriding. That was like holding on for dear life. Don't hit anything in the parking garage.
yeah.
But there were some cool cars.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't take them out anywhere fun.
So, we connected. Well, I don't know if it was you or who, but back when you all had the restaurant, I think it was like the first year of us having the card, the restaurant was part of it. And then I started learning more about you guys besides just hitting up. I would always go to the Erie Boulevard store, but besides hitting that up, I started to see your stuff when you were putting out like more content and whatnot. And then recently now you guys are connected with us in some of the videos, which is awesome. But I'm sure a lot of people do the same thing, have started to get into like the world of bourbon and found out it's a black hole of information.
Very much so.
Yeah. When did that really? Because that's, correct me if I'm wrong. This surge in bourbon really hit in the past like 3 or 4 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say so. And for me, I guess the more I got involved with the liquor stores, I started managing in Liverpool 3, 4 years ago. Is kind of when I always used to drink whiskey. My roommates said there was like 4 or 5 of us in a house. One of us would bring home a bottle of whiskey or scotch, Irish whiskey, whatever it was, every few days, and we would drink it. But I really wasn't knee deep into learning about it, educating, and tasting it. That really took off, I'd say 2, 3 years ago. Kind of right around the time when the bourbon boom, really blew up, where there's been inflated prices. I mean, the secondary market and a typical bottle of Buffalo Trace that we have here, you could find on the shelf at any liquor store is, you got to know someone now, or you have to pay double what you should. And I think that's all really blown up in the past year, 2 years, and the power of marketing and advertising behind these big companies has definitely played a role in that, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, because you guys, I mean, I haven't seen that on the shelf in the past month since I've been going in, and now all of a sudden you posted it today.
Literally, this morning we got a drop. Before we used to, before they used to beg us to order it. Blanton's, I have a picture on my phone from 6 years ago, a whole display of cases of Blanton's, Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare for $40. They would literally beg for us to buy it. Now, I don't know when it comes. I found out yesterday. We got 3 cases coming tomorrow. Do you want it tomorrow or do you want it next week? And of course, we'll take everything and anything we can get, ship it ASAP. And I might not get an opportunity to buy it again it's October now. Hopefully we get another drop before Christmas.
Wow.
Quarterly, there's no rhyme or reason. I wish customers come in and say, when are you going to get it? Why don't you have it? I said, just as much as I do at this point. I'm waiting for that email or text from my sales rep.
That's crazy.
Right when you think you know when it's coming,
Yeah.
they change it. So your guess is as good as mine. Is
It's
what
insane.
I say.
Yeah. Well, let's part of this I wanted to kind of go through and taste some of this with you and
Sure.
see. So let's.
I never say no to a taste of whiskey, my friend.
I brought my other Pascale's glass home that you gave me, so I'm gonna give you that one.
I like it. Familiar with that.
This is the one I got from Maker's Mark when we were in Kentucky.
I have one of those at home. That's one of my favorites.
Is it?
I can't find how to buy it and got my logo on it. So until then, we use those.
Does it really matter? I may have given you a heavy pour.
Oh, that's all right. I had lunch today. Does the glass matter? Some people will say yes for nosing purposes, and some people will say more so for Scotch. But I use a different glass every night, really, and something in this general size, and with the cup, so you can really, it holds the aromas in.
Yeah.
But if I pour it out of a rocks glass or drink it out of a rocks glass,
Yeah.
it still tastes good to me.
Right.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Little Buffalo Trace. What a treat.
See, this is a 90 proof, and I don't understand. I understand the difference in proofs. I personally am not a huge fan of the higher proof stuff because you have to get through so much of it to really start to taste it. And that's why I like that Eagle Rare. That's a 90 proof as well.
Some people are high proof, only. I got one customer, if it's below 120 proof, he's not interested.
Holy crap.
Everyone's different. And
Yeah.
some people think it's kind of macho and manly to drink 130, 40 proof whiskey, neat with no ice, no water. Sure, there might be pleasure in that for some.
Yeah.
For me, my sweet spot's 100, 110, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Still drinkable, still approachable. You definitely, the more you drink whiskey, I don't say more you get a tolerance for it, but, well, exactly that.
Yeah.
Because it definitely, you're kind of like training your palate in a sense to
Yeah.
how do I get past the burn of the alcohol? Feel it coming down. They call that the Kentucky hug, which with this I find to be pretty mellow, and you can taste it, which is quite enjoyable.
Right.
We tasted some Old Forester yesterday, 130 proof, and I'm happy to put water in it. Really opens up the aromas. One mellows out the alcohol a little bit, and you can really get the full flavor.
Yeah.
Some people would disagree and say you're ruining it, but at the end of the day, I drink whiskey
Yeah.
the way you want to drink whiskey.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be enjoyed.
For sure. Have you ever tried using those bottles of like the Kentucky limestone water that they sell?
I have not. We have good water here.
Yeah, we do. For sure.
But that's what their thing in Kentucky is the
Yeah.
limestone water, and it probably does make a difference. But
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah. So you talking about the different proofs, and obviously there's an intention when they're putting out a bottle of those, right? I mean, well, I guess I was just about to say, I guess the shorter. Well, what's the age on Buffalo Trace? Is it just a standard?
Probably
4 year?
4 to 6 years, give or take. It's a blend,
Yeah.
and the more you proof it down, the more whiskey you got.
Yeah.
So like this is their, I would say every day, but you can't find this
Yeah.
every day. So they want to produce as much as they can, have a higher yield. If this was 110 proof, they'd have way less, and
Yeah.
that means less to sell.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say more the entry. Well, yeah, more the entry levels are more. There's not many 80 proofs on the shelf.
Really.
A few, but really 90 proofs kind of where you'll see a lot of them. 94, I think Makers is 92, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And that's that's a great proof. It's
Yeah.
easy to drink neat, or it can stand up to a cocktail. Some of the 80 proofs, nothing against them. Those you can enjoy like this, but in your classic cocktail, I think you're losing the for the body of the whiskey when you're adding, cherries, sweet vermouth, or whatever else you might be making.
Yeah.
Time and place for every whiskey and proof.
Yeah. It's thinking about. Well, thinking about just that, like the different proofs and what the distilleries put out, and then talking about like your sweet spots, like that 100 to 110. I'm wondering if you find the bourbon that you like, or if you try everything because it's like, the creator created. You know what I mean? Like when Buffalo Trace puts this out, or any of their other products, right? Because now I've learned that they make just about everything.
A lot.
They're putting something out at 90. They're putting something out at 110. Are they putting out the 90 proof Buffalo Trace for the 90 proof drinker, and the 110 for the 110 drinker? Or is it important in your mindset to try both, so that way you can kind of almost like appreciating a piece of art, if that makes sense?
I think both in that sense. Maker's Mark, for example, they do one mash bill. They have one recipe. That's all they do. It differentiates. Maker's Mark is the proofs and then how they finish them. But the regular Maker's Mark is probably, for an everyday, more approachable whiskey. And then their cask strength is, I don't want to say someone more experienced, but someone who's looking for, whether it's a cocktail or they're looking for a bigger, bolder, spicier pour.
Yeah.
In my tenure of drinking whiskey, I've definitely gone through stages where I wanted the high alcohol. Let's see what it's about. And I definitely trained my palate to be able to enjoy 130 proof, neat, no water, no ice, and like it. I had one last night, and it kicked me in the gut, and I threw a cube in it, and I enjoyed it, and it really opened up as the cube melted. But it's funny how it flows. Where right now, if you poured me a high proof, I would need to proof it down. My palate isn't trained for that today.
Yeah.
2 months into winter, we'll see.
Yeah.
As I maybe potentially start to drink a little higher proof things, but I don't gravitate towards the higher alcohol just because.
Right.
That I feel like some people do, but
yeah. You've mentioned before, about like Smoke Wagon and Buffalo Trace and everything they're doing out there, and that is about their marketing. I mean, what makes great marketing in your mind for a bourbon?
Marketing gurus, both of them. Buffalo Trace has been around forever, and Smoke Wagon, on the other hand, has been here for 3-4 years tops, not even 3 years maybe.
Yeah.
And he is the buzz of the bourbon community as much as you can be in terms of a new product, in the bourbon world. How? Because he's a marketing guru. And I say that all the time in the store.
Yeah.
From his bottle design to his message. He's a cowboy in Las Vegas with guns and horses and motorcycles, and that's his MO. He is on Instagram, social media all day, every day.
Yeah.
Just pounding his brand. See this shirt? You can buy this on my merch, website.
Yeah.
He's also doing good whiskey, which helps him, but it's his personality, his image that's, I think, driving the brand right now. He doesn't even distill it. He buys it from Indiana, gets it shipped to Las Vegas, blends it, bottles it in Vegas, and whatever he touches is gold.
That's amazing.
Which is a great idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
It is good whiskey, but it's his marketing message that I think is really driving his brand. Buffalo Trace has a little bit of both of that, I think, in their back pocket, where they have the brand, they've been around for a long time. This whole allocated craze, you can thank Buffalo Trace for, in my opinion, where, the fact that this is not on a shelf anymore,
Yeah.
it's hard to get. Now I really want it.
Right.
I can't get it. I must have it.
Yeah.
That's a $30 bottle.
Right.
At the end of the day, you can compare that, next to Elijah Craig, which you can get at every liquor store, every bar around town, around the country. People aren't going nuts for this. They are like they are for that. The Van Winkle line really is what blew them up, and they've been in movies, they've been on podcasts, they've sprinkled just enough tidbits of advertising out there to catch the consumer's attention, and now it's hard to get, and that is just spiked.
Yeah.
Spiked the consumer to, now I really want this.
Yeah.
It was actually, I don't know if you follow Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
He started what I think of, I don't want to say the downfall, but the spiral of the allocated bourbons when he was quoted for saying Pappy Van Winkle, 15 was the best whiskey he's ever tasted. And from that point on, Van Winkle, it's always been sought after, but I remember my first bottle I bought at Liquor Square. I was stocking shelves. It was on the shelf for $50. I think I just turned 21. Brought it home, enjoyed it. $50 bottle of bourbon. Didn't think too much of it.
Yeah.
Now you find a bottle of Van Winkle on the shelf for $50. It's a gold mine.
All right.
And if you find a bottle on the shelf for buy me one too, because that's a killer price. So
Yeah.
it's crazy how it's changed over the years, and they've done a good job of marketing it that way, and it's worked to their advantage. Everyone wants Buffalo Trace now.
It's I've never gotten really into spirits at all until recently, and I think over the last month and a half, I've probably spent, or 2 months, I've most likely spent $600 or $700, probably more than that if I'm just thinking about the random stuff, like the other spirits. But it's dumb. I mean, it's not dumb, but it's dumb. It really is. Like don't get me wrong, like seeing Buffalo Trace, and I've listened to Joe Rogan ads for the last 3 years about Buffalo Trace.
The power of press, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. And so I love it. And there was something really, really fun about, and I've never been this way with anything else, but there was something really fun about going to store to store to store and then finally finding one bottle of
The
Russell's
hunt,
Reserve.
the chase.
Yeah, that was a blast.
But I do that.
Do you?
I'm involved in 3 liquor stores. If I drive by a liquor store, I go in it.
Really?
For market research, but I'm also looking for that unicorn, they call it.
Yeah.
Where is that one bottle of, like you found, Russell's Reserve 13 that someone missed on their last time hunting, and is it at a good price?
Yeah.
Something I'm never going to find elsewhere. And occasionally you will find that unicorn or that hidden gem. But for me, I luckily have good access to bourbon. So it's a little market research. And also I'm doing some hunting myself.
Right. Hey, but you can't just call up a rep and say, hey, I want that bottle of whatever.
I do want that bottle of Russell's Reserve 13. But no, I can't. I mean, we got allocated a certain amount of bottles. We have a customer loyalty program we do, so we sell it, to our good customers.
Yeah.
So there's not always that opportunity for even myself to, say, hey, let's crack that and enjoy it and see if I like it, I'll get another.
Right.
'Cause, we get our allotment and that's it. How they do the allotment's different with every company, but for the most part, we do get decent allocations, which does allow me to have the opportunity to try a lot of the bottles. But still, there's always, at this point, it's a hobby. Now I have a collection more than I could ever imagine drinking.
Right.
But, it's like some people collect baseball cards or Pokemon cards or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
A lot of people collect bourbon.
Yeah. The thing with bourbon, well, I guess as a bourbon collector, I'm sure as a true collector, you're opening and enjoying those bottles. Like I'd imagine, I'm sure you have some unopened stuff, but like I don't want to open that bottle of Russell's Reserve. I want to sit there and try and flip it, right? Or sit there and let it sit for a couple of years and wait for a special occasion. But I bought a NFT, like a V-Friend Series 2, right? And
It's an investment for some people.
without a doubt. I mean, the V-Friend Series 1 exploded. You bought those for a couple $100s. They're worth, $100,000 at their height.
I should have bought one.
Yeah. That's why I bought the Series 2. I was like I was made sure. And I spent $1,500 on it, and pretty much the next week,
It plummeted.
the crypto market and everything crashed with it. And then I think of like Unplugged Gaming and Manliest. I mean, they just went out of business, where literally this time last year they were expanding because that Pokemon whole trading card game was exploding.
Yeah, apparently my cards aren't worth anything. So who would have thought? I tried.
But it's not the same. I mean, obviously we're in a boom. I'm assuming we're still in the boom of bourbon. But even if it goes down, even if it crashes tomorrow, there's still something you can open and drink.
Yeah. So for me as a collector, especially being in the business, I'm getting these bottles to enjoy and taste, to be able to talk about them with customers. Did you like them? Did you not like them? How's it compare to this? Other people, it's simply an investment. And I follow on Facebook all the time. It's good market research for me, where the market, just like the stock market goes up, goes down. As we approach to the holidays and the Van Winkles will release soon, the market's going to be like peak high, Christmas presents, holiday presents. This is when the market spikes again in the bourbon world.
Yeah.
But for some people, they post pictures and there's 100 bottles and none of them are open. And everyone in the comment thread, well, do you ever drink? What are you doing? And they're harassing this person because they have this wonderful, thousands of dollars collection and they never enjoyed.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily get that. I also don't do the hunting or the spending that other people do, so it's hard for me to relate on that matter because luckily being involved in the 3 liquor stores, I have access to these bourbons a little bit differently than other people. But for me, and I used to collect shoes, I compare a good bottle of bourbon to a nice pair of shoes. What's it worth if you're if you're never going to wear them?
Right.
You got a nice pair of shoes, but if you never wear them, who cares? You got a nice bottle of bourbon and you don't know what it tastes like. That I don't get. If you have a backup, you want to save, makes sense. But you went out 10 different liquor stores, you got this holy grail of bourbon. If you're into bourbon, I would assume you want to, what the hell does this taste like?
Right.
Is it good? Is it bad? Hopefully you like it, because if you open it and you don't, one, there goes your investment. 2, you're stuck with a crappy bottle of whiskey now. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So there's different levels of collectors in the bourbon world right now, very much so. And some people solely for a side gig to make extra money. Some people because they enjoy whiskey, and some people, merge those two together, and that's the bourbon world right now. And that's also a reason for the skyrocket in pricing and how things are hard to find.
Yeah.
Everyone's hunting.
Right. When I got that and then quickly realized, all the issues with trying to unload it. A friend said, I have a buddy in Chicago who's really into bourbon. He's been looking for that. Let me text him. And so hypothetically, I told him I wanted, my buddy was texting his friend in Chicago right there. He's like, what do you want for it? And I was like, $250. And
sold.
And he's like, no, he's like, the minimum is $350. And I was like, okay. And he said, but I'm going to wait. The allocations are coming to Chicago in 2 weeks anyways. I'm just going to try and find a bottle then. And I'm sure that's a big part. I'm sure, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's people they want the easiest way to get the bottle and the easiest way to unload it. But I think probably a bigger part of it is the hunt.
The hunt for sure. I mean, and I get it. There's money to be made on these. We sell a bottle of Van Winkle to our good customers for $200. They can sell it for $1,500.
Crazy.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I get it. And then there's people that look down upon the flippers of the world, and people that will literally they'll follow the trucks.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons I started our whiskey program, our customer loyalty program, to avoid the flippers, to avoid the cherry pickers.
Yeah.
They don't shop with us anytime throughout the year. They call me the day Van Winkle release and say, hey, what do you have for me? Man, excuse me.
No, you're fine.
I haven't seen you all year, and you want me to sell you our most highly anticipated bottle. And if I sell you for too much, you're going to be mad at me, and you're going to go make money on it. This doesn't make sense to me, but clearly I'm in the wrong somehow.
Right.
So the secondary market's a very interesting thing right now, and it's all derived from Facebook, social media. There's all these private groups where I could show. I watch it a lot because it's good market research for me, and it helps me price my bottles. But you could take that bottle. We could sign you up right now if you have a Facebook account. You can get added to one of the groups. You post a picture.
That's wild.
For trade, Russell's Reserve 13, in search of $500. The first person to type BIN,
Yeah.
gets the bottle. And it's all trust, word of mouth. You
Yeah.
just have to, this guy's going to pay you. He's going to Venmo you. He's going to PayPal you, all illegally.
Yeah.
And he's going to trust that you ship it to him
Right.
illegally. But these groups have been going on for many years. There's backup groups. There's backup groups to the backup groups. And there's people that will follow our truck, buy as much E.H. Taylor and whatever they can find, and go home and they'll post it on Facebook in their car. Called the crotch shot.
Yeah.
The bottle, holding it in your car, steering wheel,
Yeah.
and it's sold before they get home.
How do you feel about that? About like the people that are flipping it for profit?
Tough, because you buy a bottle of for $100, you sell it for that's a lot of money. I get it.
Yeah.
Like everyone has, well, not everyone, but some people have side gigs and they're
Right.
hustling, and they got to make money.
Yeah.
In terms of, and I can't control it in terms of the store.
Right.
I try to, but there's only, I put a bottle on the shelf, customer comes in and buys it. I can't control what he or she does once they leave the store.
Are there many though, like shelf? I mean, because of the program, which I love, by the way. Because of the program, you're not really putting a lot of those bottles out on the shelf.
Yes and no.
I mean, I guess you have to really know what you're looking for.
Yeah, and that's why I watch the secondary market so much, just to see, what's trending right now, what's hot today, what's going to be hot next week. And that, honestly, by watching these groups is what helps me determine, is this going to go on the shelf? What price is this going to go on the shelf? Where am I going to find that happy medium price that isn't going to piss off one of my customers, but also not allow a flipper to come in and get the bottle and make, double the profits I made? I don't love it.
Yeah.
Especially it's, everyone's going to, I know I've sold a bottle, one or two over the years, when I needed money, just like anyone else. My one buddy, he has a reserve stash. He goes, what if my water heater breaks? I need, and an emergency stash. I get.
Yeah.
It's it's the guys that are going to come in, they see a good buy, and they buy all 6 of them. That pisses me off.
Yeah.
Not only did you just, I had a special bourbon I wanted to share with sell to my customers.
Yeah.
You just ruined the opportunity for everyone else to try that bottle, and now you're making the more money than, if that was the case, I would have triple marked it up, and you would have bought one and that would have been it, and then other people would have got it. But it's more so that I think that bothers me.
Yeah. You don't see this, I mean, or I guess, do you see it in any other spirit besides bourbon? Maybe a little scotch, like you mentioned, but I mean, you're not seeing this with gin or vodka or...
No, at least not in groups that I'm involved in or follow that I know of. Scotch, I want to say, is a much older clientele. Whether there's truth to that or not, that's my opinion. As the bourbon category has exploded, I feel like the Scotch and Irish whiskey categories have decreased. There's a bottle here or there in each category that you'll see. Some of the Macallans you'll see in the secondary markets. A bottle of Redbreast here and there, but even the Redbreast 27, one of the best whiskeys I've ever tasted in my life. Buy it in the store for $5.50. It's on secondary for $600. There's not that.
Yeah.
Anyone who's doing that, I mean, God bless.
Right.
That's a big investment to risk to make
Yeah.
$50 off of. There's not the huge margins that there is in bourbon. I've seen it with a bottle of tequila, one brand in particular, but
Yeah, that makes sense.
but no, I wouldn't. Not that I'm aware of, at least. Definitely not gin or vodka that I've seen.
Yeah. I've always been more into scotch for some reason up until recently. And I don't know why. I forget if it was somebody who just like mentioned it one time or said it, but I used to just always drink Glenlivet 12. I think it was a 12-year. And then I think it was the 12-year. And then one time for a special vacation I bought, I think it was the 18-year, maybe. Or maybe I think that's correct.
Yeah, they have them all.
Yeah, it was, but it was like a $200 bottle. And side by side, I could not honestly tell you the difference between the 12 and the 18, besides the $100 and the cost.
I recommend you drink the 12 then.
Yeah, yes. And that was the last bottle of Glenlivet I bought. But if I do buy it again, it'll be the 12-year.
So I say it all the time in the store. You can spend whatever you want on these whiskeys. It's all about finding a good value.
Yeah.
And if you don't quite have the palate for it, I mean, if you poured me a 12 and 18 side by side blind, hopefully I'd be able to tell the difference. I don't drink enough Scotch where I could
Yeah.
stamp it. This is that and this is that. With some of the bourbons, I think there is a noticeable difference. I tasted a customer on the Van Winkle 10 this morning, actually. We had a bottle share the other night, and I had 2 sips left, and he's never had it. I said, "It's good, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I'm not what I was expecting. I'm like, "What were you expecting?" This is a bottle of whiskey, just like anything else here. It's not gold, it's good, but and we had the conversation. Is it 20 times better than this?
Right. No.
Just because the market says it is, or because it's more expensive, doesn't mean it's that much better. And some people might argue that it is, but at the end of the day, it's 10-year-old whiskey.
Yeah. I get that more with champagne. Of all, I've had cheap champagne and I've had really expensive champagne, and you can look at one or the other and tell which one is nicer, obviously. But to me, you can also taste that difference. Like, if I open that bottle of Russell's Reserve, I don't know if I could take a similar proof and be able to tell the difference or appreciate the difference. But yeah, I mean, when I proposed to my wife, I bought a bottle of Cristal from 2005, which was like a great year. And from what I was told, at least, who the hell knows, it was like one of the last bottles in Syracuse of that. And it was a phenomenal bottle of champagne. I mean, I don't think anything's ever gone down easier than that bottle of champagne.
And it feels good, too.
Yeah, it felt really good. It was worth it, for the money I paid for it.
Good value.
Yeah.
You bought something, a premium option in a category. You enjoyed it far superior than the others. You drink that Russell's Reserve 13 next to Wild Turkey 81, you're going to taste a difference.
For sure.
You drink that next to something, like you said, similar in proof, maybe not.
Yeah.
And that's the power of marketing with these guys. It's allocated.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to, taste like gold. And I've had customers come in and she goes, I bought this $50 bottle of Cabernet last night, but it didn't taste like a $50 bottle of Cab. And I looked at her and said, what's a $50 Cab supposed to taste? Like, what do you mean? Like,
yeah.
It's a smaller production. It's done on in Napa's super expensive land. Like, all of these things come into cost. Quality hopefully follows, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
So you got to find the good. You got to find the good buys.
Yeah.
And there are not good buys out there, but
for sure. Yeah. I mean, not to knock them, because I'm sure somebody from the group will listen to this, but like the Blue Note bottle, like the barrel pick, I am not a fan of that whatsoever. I don't know what it is, but drinking it neat, it just has like this really weird, to me at least, it's really odd texture almost. It's like, I don't know, oily. And I mean, it's at the house. I only drink it as a Manhattan at the house, and it's fine. But I could say that's probably like my least favorite. And besides that, and I don't know what's so different about it. I want to look and I want to say, oh, it's from Memphis. That's why. But, but I'm sure that has nothing to do with it.
It's Kentucky bourbon.
Is
it says Memphis on it. It's Juke Joint, Memphis, Tennessee. It's Kentucky bourbon all the way.
That's hilarious.
But, and to me, I kind of scratch my head a lot of times at the store, because we're not experts of the field.
Right, yeah.
Some people are just beginning with whiskeys, and you drank that Blue Note a week ago. Go home and try it tonight. It's going to taste totally different.
Yeah,
it is, and especially, and this is what I love about people's tasting notes and this and that, and what did you eat that day?
Right.
I drank coffee all morning.
Yeah.
My palate is not the same right now as it's going to be in 5 hours from now, as it's going to be tomorrow. And all of these things, you have spicy food, all of these things. Did you smoke a cigar today? Like, all of these things play into a role of what you're going to taste.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, the fun, but also like, kind of, I laugh a little bit with, you get caramel today, tomorrow it tastes like tobacco. Like,
right.
Sure, that's what you taste. Your palate's different than mine. You got a thicker, oily viscosity. Sometimes it might be tannic and dry your mouth out. Really, depending on where's your palate today.
Yeah.
What did you eat? Chewing gum. All these things play a factor. And whiskey does open up. That's why I say try it tonight. Like,
Yeah.
the neck pour, they say is, right when you open a bottle, the first sip, it's tight. Similar to wine, different science ways, but, whiskey does open up and evolve over time. So I encourage you, try it tonight and, see if it does taste different or add a drop of water and you might find, you'll find, a flavor profile you were looking for, perhaps, or maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. So, I mean, when it comes to like the Syracuse Bourbon Society, which is a great Facebook group, and if you're listening to this, you should go and join it if you're getting into bourbons. They're doing. I'm surprised to see how many different barrel picks that they do. So, and only because I'm curious, it's going to be a follow-up question, but how does that work? Do they come to you and say, do you have a barrel pick on the way because we want to do something for the crew? And, they're obviously not going to the distillery like you would and selecting a barrel.
As much as I think they would probably like to do that, fun experience, and I'm sure they will have the opportunity to do that down the road. Chris, good guy, he's in charge of the group. Him and a few others that I think he's promoted up within the group to help him kind of run the whole thing. They've really just evolved over time, where it was simply an area for people to talk bourbon. And there's a bunch of these groups throughout the nation, throughout the country, who are doing these, barrel picks. And if you get a big enough following, you can, buy a barrel and hopefully sell it to the people that are within your group who share, like interest to you.
There's a few thousand bottles in a barrel, right? Like 2 or 3?
100.
Oh, there's only 100.
Yeah, so every barrel is different. I've had a barrel of Penelope this spring that yielded 110 bottles. This most recent barrel yielded double that for whatever reason, spillage, evaporation, age, proof, all those things come into play. But the guys at Syracuse Bourbon Society, I think this is something they've been wanting to do for a while, is let's team up with partner with the store or a local distiller, and let's do a barrel and see if we can offer it to our group. And they've had some success for sure. I think Chris and the team over there we've done 2 barrels with them this year, and I think they just really started this spring. I think we did the first one of the first ones with them with a 3-chord honey finish. That was quite delicious, a little bit sweet, something totally different.
So is the Blue Note something that you were going to be bringing in no matter what?
No, so our Pascale Liquors, we did our own Blue Note barrel in the spring, which we had great success with. People loved it, and I brought it to their attention. This is a great opportunity for me, great opportunity for them. The more, for me, branding, marketing.
Yeah.
Let's get my name out there. Let's link up with, let's partner with the Syracuse Bourbon Society group. I'll facilitate the samples. We'll get their team in. They'll taste them, see which ones they like, and you guys get final say. You're putting your name on it. I'm going to sell it.
Yeah.
But in my eyes, running a business, if I can bring in a barrel on Tuesday that's sold by Friday, that's a good business plan. It's 200 bottles out the door, sold before I have to pay for it. That's a goal for sure. That's great. Not every barrel works that way, but that would be ideal.
Yeah. You see a lot of companies like that have zero business being in bourbon or whiskey or spirits in general. Now all of a sudden branding, like they're going to work with, and I won't say that's a poor follow up to this person or this company as an example. I'm not saying that he has no business being in the spirits business, but like Weekday Bourbon or Weekday Whiskey. Josh, I think it is, right?
Josh.
So, partnering with the place in Phoenix. So, and then you see like big comedians, Bodega Cat, Mark Norman and what's his face that just launched a whiskey, or a bourbon, and not to mention the celebrity tequilas.
Tequila's the main category right now.
Yeah.
To backtrack a little bit to Josh at Weekday. We carried their product for a while. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Cool idea. Not someone that, and I don't know him very well, that knows a ton about whiskey. Just, let's buy something, slap my label on it. And I remember, when we were working with him, I said, let's do a tasting. Let's promote this. Let's get behind it. come into our store, host a tasting, and they wanted us to pay them to do it. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we're carrying your brand.
Yeah.
Don't you want to promote this brand? Like, I'm not paying you. This is something you should offer.
Yeah.
And just from the history of doing business with every company ever,
Right.
this is what they do.
Yeah.
You know, they hire a taster and they come and they taste their brand because they want to see their brand sell. So that ended, unfortunately, our relationship with the brand Weekday. And that's just simply someone who is inexperienced in the field.
Yeah.
You know, nothing
Right.
against him at all. It's just someone who wanted to try to dabble in whiskey and just doesn't quite understand the business of it.
Yeah.
Decent whiskey at the end of the day, but there's more to that,
Yeah.
you know, especially in a retail shop, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I'd imagine in this world, you're the belle of the ball. It's not the brand.
Right. I mean, I've had a few local distilleries tell me they were doing us a favor. And I'm just like, guys, you just really aren't understanding this industry. I have 3,000 SKUs in this store. I don't have to carry your SKU. There is no one knocking down our door saying, where is this item? You know, if you don't carry it, we're going to go somewhere else. No, if we don't carry it, they're going to buy something else.
Yeah.
And that's just simply understanding the business, which some of our local distilleries just don't quite get yet, which is fine. And
Yeah.
you know, hopefully with time, they'll understand how things work and they'll adapt just like we all adapt.
Is there a bourbon? Well, actually, before we get into that, let's pop open the Elijah
Okay.
Craig.
Let me finish my Buffalo Trace. Awesome bottle, by
I
the
know.
way.
I've had this a few different ways. This is only 94 proof.
Perfect.
Yeah, that is perfect. So I've had this a few different ways. I've made a few cocktails. My favorite Gold Rush. My favorite drink that I've
Just
made.
a little. I got to go back to work today. Well, this is work, right?
Yeah, is that good? You want more?
No, a little more.
A little more.
Perfect. Thank you.
I did a drunk podcast once with Kyle and Jesse from Kasai. Cheers.
Love their ramen.
We went down to where did we go? We went to Now and Later and had a few beers, and we went to Blarney and got a burger and had more beer, and then we came here and drank at like 11 midnight. Did a podcast for like 2.5 hours, and I can never release it to the public.
Totally different
Yeah.
than the Buffalo Trace.
I don't know if it's just that. I mean, I can't imagine there's a massive difference between a 90 and a 94, but this just has like a little bit of that. The Buffalo Trace goes down a lot smoother. Not a lot smoother.
This is older.
Yeah, okay.
We're getting more of that oak for sure.
Okay.
Proofs definitely help, you know, differentiate whiskeys, but I bet you the main difference between these two is the mash bill.
Okay.
Mash bill and age.
Yeah.
And I'm not, some people can tell you exactly what's in this: 72% corn, 18% rye,
Yeah.
you know, and they know those by heart. I don't. My guess is 99%, 100%. So they're different mash bills, different percentages of rye in both of them. Proofs are slightly different, but this is definitely older.
Yeah.
And I think we are pulling some of that oak.
What distillery does Elijah Craig come
Elijah Craig's done at Heaven Hill.
Okay.
And you think Buffalo Trace has their hand in a lot.
Yeah.
They are
I've noticed
equally as big, if probably bigger.
Yeah. We worked with Heaven Hill just when we did the Deep Eddies thing earlier this year. And yeah, it's wild to think. I mean, is that more out of Heaven Hill starts and develops all these brands, or is this more like isn't it Santori that owns Jim
Santori.
Beam? Is it more of a company that just comes in and buys up all the small ones?
These guys buy up all the small ones.
Okay.
Sazerac is the head, owns Buffalo Trace. They own Barton's. They own Fireball. They own half of, our
Everything.
shelf space. I mean, Heaven Hill's right there with them, though.
Yeah.
I say Heaven Hill does a better job of developing brands.
Okay.
When Sazerac Company buys
Yeah.
everything and anything and then brings them to the top,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I think they do a lot of stuff from within, I mean, they're buying brands left and right as well. I mean, they all are. But these guys are responsible for Evan Williams.
Hmm.
What else? Elijah Craig. I mean, Evan Williams has
Yeah.
10 different options. What else does Heaven Hill do? I'm drawing a blank right now. They own a lot.
So
Black Velvet, a lot.
yeah, like when I'm thinking of like the different expressions of a whatever brew, distill.
Yeah, distillery, sure.
Yeah. But the different expressions of a 4-year, a 5-year, a 6-year, 9-year, whatever, all the way up to however long, single barrel, all that kind of stuff. So if you've got one, whatever,
Elijah Craig.
yeah, and you've got 12 different expressions of that one,
Elijah Craig.
yeah. Do you ever get, is it a thing for people to say, hey, I want to try all 12 expressions?
Yeah, so I guess Four Roses is probably a good example. The Four Roses brand does, and I'm not, well, I say I'm not a Four Roses guru, but I really enjoy their juice. They have 3 everyday items: small batch select, single barrel.
Okay.
And then within their single barrel line, they have 8, 10 different recipes. That's all coded: OBSV, OESQ, OE, and OBs. And there's 4 or 5 of 10 total, 8 or 10. I don't know. I don't have them memorized like some of my customers do. And within these, let's say 10 different recipes, different age statements, different proofs. You know, people go nuts for them. They want to try them all.
Yeah.
I took a picture at home the other night. I'm missing like 3 of them. I want to try them all. And they are, and my dad comes over and goes, why do you have all these Four Roses on the table? And aren't they all the same? Like, no, they're all different. He goes, oh, that's just marketing. Like, no, they're different yeasts, different mash bills. Like, they are different.
Yeah.
And it is fun to compare them and try them side by side and see which one do I like better today. So I know tomorrow I'm going to taste something different.
Yeah.
So I find joy in trying them all and comparing them. But also just drinking them is fine too.
All right. So how many bottles do you have in your collection?
Open? I counted the other day. I have at home just over 150 open.
Wow.
Closed. That's at my house. I make sure to keep them scattered. My in-laws, my brother-in-laws, my parents' house. You know, just make sure there's the lake house, a good port anywhere we go.
Is that what you're drinking primarily? Is just bourbon, or are you typically having a cocktail of some sort?
I don't discriminate, man. If someone, you know, my wife, she really likes red wine. She likes wine.
Yeah.
White wine, red wine. So I'll typically taste, you know, whatever she's opening and enjoying. I'll make sure to taste it because I'm sure it's something we sell and just helps refresh my, you know, memory palate. With food, you know, with my family, we drink wine. I grew up drinking wine.
Yeah.
At home, I'm lazy. So like the idea of cocktails is always fun.
Yeah.
I make the occasional Negroni, or I do Negroni 10 different ways: tequila, mezcal, gin, whiskey, Boulevardier it's called.
Yeah. Have you been selling a shit ton of Prosecco lately?
We're about to.
Yeah.
Aperol Spritz was like skyrocketed overnight. So we've done we've sold more Aperol in the past year than we have in 10 years.
Wow.
That complements a sparkling wine. So
that Prosecco, actually, I have to come in and get a bottle of Prosecco because of that TikTok clip of that interview. Have you seen that?
No, I'm on social media because of work.
I'm going to pull this up to show
I wish I wasn't on it as much as I am. It is good market research, and I do find benefits, but my wife's like, you're staring at your phone. And I do, and I wish I didn't.
This is an interview that HBO put out of...
TikTok sells, man. If people come in and say, I saw this recipe on TikTok, I got to have it.
What's your drink of choice? A Negroni. I was going to say the same thing. Magliato. With Prosecco in it. Oh, stunning. Yeah. What's your drink of choice?
That video, I wonder how many times...
What is that, a Negroni with Prosecco?
Yeah, Negroni Spagliato. which is just a Negroni with Prosecco. But
That sounds nice, actually.
then she says Prosecco in it at the end. And so there's been TikToks of people making fun of her, like, that is Prosecco. But anyways, that's like, that's the trend right now on TikTok is that video. So I'm going to put one out. And now all of a sudden Serious Eats and all Eater and all these people are putting out the blogs about it and all that kind of stuff.
We get introduced to products through TikTok,
Yeah.
before they even hit our market. People are like, hey, have you seen this? Do you have this yet? And I'll look at, no, never heard of it. 2 weeks later, we get presented that item. I'm like, oh, bring it in. It was on TikTok. We got to carry it now. The power of press, social media, it works. It definitely drives sales.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's two last questions. Well, three last questions. Okay, cool. Have you ever thought about creating your own, like making your own brand?
Up until recently, no, up until recently,
Yeah.
we were down, quick story, we were down in Newark, New Jersey, the hood in Newark. It was like we're driving around, like,
I've
what
been
the
there,
hell
yeah.
are we doing here? And then we pull up into Penelope's
Yeah.
warehouse. Not a warehouse. It was, we park the car, we get out, and they say, hey, come look at our, in Kentucky, they have rick houses bigger than this factory.
Yeah.
And theirs was a moving container,
Hmm.
a truck moving container. They open the door and I go, here's our warehouse. There were 60 barrels inside, and I
Holy
counted
shit.
them. I have a picture. You can count every barrel in there. 60, and then in the moving container next to it were their empty barrels. And then they had a small little facility where they were doing their blending and bottling, and it was super small. And I'm like, as we left, I looked at the guys. It's like, oh, like, we could do this. Like, we have more space than this. We just need $1 million. But besides that, we could do this.
Yeah.
They contract with MGP, which is a distillery in Indiana that simply sells barrels, and they get truckloads of barrels from Indiana. They bottle them, blend them, slap their label on them, and now they're all over the country, and they're making a killing.
Penelope's main thing is in
Newark, New Jersey. We went down last month. We got
Holy
2
shit.
barrel picks coming. They're going to be phenomenal. I'm very excited for them.
I saw you posting about some of the bottles that are in now. Yeah.
It's and Penelope is a brand that this guy Michael and a few of his partners created 5 years ago, and he literally just
That's wild.
bought a few barrels from, and that's what Smoke Wagon did. He bought
Yeah.
barrels from Indiana, slapped them in a cool bottle, cool label, put his name on it. So up until recently, it was never
Yeah.
a thought of mine, but after leaving Penelope, it kind of inspired me. Like, this is not a large space.
Yeah.
I mean, he does have, obviously there's a big investment here.
Right.
Barrels aren't cheap, equipment's not cheap, but at the end of the day, like, they can do that in this place, like,
Yeah.
we could do this.
I know, I know like the fluctuation in elements and temperatures can help a lot with that aging process. I wonder what that would be like in upstate, in a truly,
I don't know, because
I mean, there's obviously places doing it, but
I'd be curious. I don't think it means so much be our climate, more as the barrels.
Yeah.
Where are we going to get our barrels? Because the oak is, they say 80% of your flavor.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that number, but the majority of your flavor in these bottles comes from the barrel and the aging process. Kentucky, obviously, it's really hot in the summer, and they don't have the extremes that we do in the
Yeah.
winter, but it's not, it's cold down there in the
Yeah,
winter
for sure.
still. Scotland, for example, they have one climate,
yeah.
all year round. And because of that lack of variation, you'll see scotches for 18 years, age 18 years, aged. You go to the bourbon category, there's no bourbons on our shelf aged 18 years.
Yeah.
There's too much fluctuation in our climate where you'd pull too much from the barrel and it wouldn't taste good.
What is the longest? Like a 12?
Which still, we don't have many of those on the shelf. A few 12, 10, Russell's Reserve, they're every day's 10 years, Knob Creek's 9 years. I'd say that the sweet spot's 6 to 8, somewhere in there, most stuff on the shelf. But, talking about all these new distilleries, they're all releasing 4-year distillate, 5-year distillate.
Yeah.
So it ranges. It's a question of how much patience you have.
Yeah.
Because that's a big investment to sit on for 8 years before you have a return.
I wonder, I mean, I don't know, who knows what what the market's going to be like. And I won't say that, I think that probably the global or internet or the national market for a big brand push for a spirit has probably climaxed, I think. But
Say that again.
I think that the market for a global celebrity or big brand push for their own new brand of spirit has probably climaxed. And I think,
Thanks to tequila.
yeah. And I think that, I mean, there's still, listen, if you have an audience, you can sell whatever you want. You can start whatever you want, almost whenever you want, and be able to push it. And you know, there's nothing new about that. I think today what we're realizing is the smaller people with a smaller influence are starting to realize, oh wait, I can do the same thing. They haven't figured out yet that they should only focus regionally. A lot of them think, I'm going to start my own and be, you know, whatever, Casamigos, whatever the fuck it's going to be. So that was the one curse word. Now I have to make
I
this
was doing
episode
good. You just ruined
explicit.
it.
I was thinking, like, this whole time I'm thinking, this is going to be the first clean episode. I've done.
I had that in the back of my talk like a pirate, man. I was doing good. You blew it.
I'm going to have to bleep that one out. So not a lot of, I don't think the small ones have realized that they don't have the, like, if you can build your following in the area, local New York, my following is Syracuse and Central New York. If I launch something in Buffalo tomorrow, I'm not going to do anything. If I launch something in Syracuse tomorrow, I'm still not going to do anything. It's going to be a little bit better than Buffalo. And so I think probably, again, nationally, that's hit its peak. Regionally, I think smaller brands and backwards markets like ours are just starting to realize this. And I'm sure we're going to see a big uptick in the next couple of years, assuming the economy doesn't crash everybody's hopes and dreams.
Assuming.
Yeah, which that's a wrong assumption. But
If that does happen, just come to the liquor store, drink your sorrows away. We'll be open.
I want to get. I've thought about that. You know, I think of like the big podcasts, like, you know, the Nelk Boys and the Full Send podcast and Happy Dad Seltzer and all that kind of stuff. And
Got to start somewhere.
yeah, I've always been talking to a Buried Acorn about doing a beer collab, and now I think, and it just clicked the other day. I was like, this shouldn't just be like a like a beer collab with Eat Local New York, and it looks like it should be like an Eat Local New York thing. It should be as much Eat Local New York as I can without needing my own license, and then just push the hell out of it. You know, so.
And there's a Irish whiskey brand from Ireland who hit this market, you know, full steam ahead, and they tried partnering with, you know, how do they capitalize this market here in Syracuse? They tried partnering with Middle Ages. It's like,
Oh yeah,
it's brilliant, you know. Start within our community, and then from there, you can, you know, go elsewhere. And unfortunately, it never panned out just due to container issues going back from Ireland to here. It was about a year ago, end of COVID.
yeah.
But, you know, to your point, you know, got to start somewhere and stick with your regional, you know, expertise, I'd say.
Yeah. All right. So from asking a bourbon expert, what's the one bottle of bourbon you think everyone should try?
One bottle that you can get?
Yes, that you can get.
I need a minute. Caught me off guard with that one. Honestly, man, right here.
Really?
Elijah Craig. This is on the shelf. You can find this anywhere. $30. I know this is a barrel pick for us, so we have a 9-year pick. Actually, we just sold out of the 9-year. We have a 10-year pick, $35. 10-year distilled by Elijah Craig, so it's authentic to them.
Yeah.
94 proof, great intro bourbon, but also good bourbon for anyone, for the expert bourbon drinkers that can, you know, drink only the expensive stuff. This is a bottle anyone can enjoy. Neat, on the rocks, in cocktails. It's high quality stuff. It's a good value. It's accessible. This to me is kind of the standard of Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, one of the first whiskeys that got me into whiskey. One bottle that I have at home at all times. A $30 bottle.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Nick, thanks so much, man. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
coming down, doing the podcast.
I can talk bourbon all day, my friend,
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, everybody who's listening and watching, if you're out here in Central New York, make sure you get out to Pascale's Wines and Liquors in Fayetteville, Pascale's Liquors in Liverpool, and Pascale's Liquor Square on Erie Boulevard.
You got that down pat.
I do.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.